This can be written in many other ways. Pleasure meeting you, nice to meet you, glad to meet you, anything is fine. Once the introduction is done, he say it's pleasure meeting or it's very glad meeting you, sir. Even the response will be the same thing from Mr. Ashok also. So when you take up the writing part, when you write the conversation, it should be in the formal way and it should be very polite. It should be in a polished manner. Hello everyone, I am Babita Tamaya, lecturer, Department of English, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. In my previous session, I had discussed about language function. So in the language function, I had explained when you meet a stranger, how do you start with the conversation? How do you greet them? Then what is the formal and the informal way of greeting a stranger? How do you start with your conversation? All these things I had explained in the first session, that is in the language function. In my today's session, I'll be discussing about introducing and greeting. How to introduce and how do you greet the people when you meet them for the first time. So let's begin the session for the day. It's introducing and greeting. Introduction or introducing to a person whom you don't know. It might be your friend who is introducing to his friend, and let's see how the conversation should be. Meena and Rita are on their way home. They meet Meena's friend Wilson. Meena greets him and introduces him to Rita. So here, Meena and Rita, they are on the way to their home. When they were on their way, they meet Wilson. Wilson is Meena's friend. And now here, Meena is introducing Rita to Wilson. So here, Meena's friend is Wilson and Meena is greeting or introducing Rita to Wilson. Let's see how do we begin the conversation when somebody is introducing or somebody is greeting us to their friends. So by looking into this picture, you have to just think how the conversation begins. And you can see who's introducing to whom. By looking into this picture, you can just imagine and you can get some ideas how to begin the conversation, and all those things you will get to know by looking into the picture. So let's see here. Meena, hello Wilson. So Meena is saying hello. When it's hello, it means to say that the language function is in the informal way. Already in my previous session, that is in the language function, I had explained you when I was supposed to use the formal and the informal. In the formal, it is good morning. The good morning should be followed by good morning. But in the informal, hi and hello you can use. So by looking into this conversation, you will get to know that the language function is in the informal way. So, hi Wilson. So, Meena is saying, hi Wilson. What will be the response from Wilson? It should be hi or hello. Hi Meena. How are you? How are you doing? How are you doing? Or is hi Meena or hello Meena. What is surprise? Anything is fine, but it should be in the formal and in a polite way. So what will be the reply from Meena? I'm fine. Meet my friend Rita. So here, Meena is replying for his question, saying that how are you? She replies saying that I'm fine, and now she's introducing her friend Rita to Wilson. So meet my friend Rita. So what will Wilson say here? Wilson will reply, pleasure meeting you. Pleasure meeting you. Or else this can be written in many other ways. Pleasure meeting you, nice to meet you, glad to meet you, anything is fine. And at last, Rita, what will be her response? She might say, same here, same here, or it's nice meeting you, It's my pleasure to meet you. I'm very glad to meet you. Anything can be written. Now, if you say that we have to follow the same dialogue or the same conversation, when it is in the formal way, you need to use the words in a polite way and it should be very informal. Like, hi bro, hi sis, whatever you use in your normal language when you speak to your friends, the same kind of the conversation or the same kind of the words cannot be used here when you write the conversation. Writing is different when it comes to speaking. Speaking is totally different out of writing. You cannot use the same kind of language function when you speak in the writing part. So when you take up the writing part, when you write the conversation, it should be in the formal way and it should be very polite. It should be in a polished manner. I hope it is very clear. Moving on to the next one. So here is the question which I have picked up from your workbook. When you open the textbook, that is the introduction part, you will get this conversation and I have taken it as an example here. Compare the above dialogue with the example given below. So the dialogue is given. Let's see how the dialogue and how the conversation starts one after the other. So Mrs. Kamath, good morning, Mr. Ashok. So when I say it's good morning here, so it means to say that this conversation is in the formal language. So good morning, it should be in the formal language. Mrs. Khanna is saying good morning to Mr. Ashok. Mr. Ashok, oh, good morning, Mrs. Khanna. It's lovely day, isn't it? See the way the conversation is. It's a lovely day, isn't it? Mrs. Khanna, yes, it's beautiful. Mr. Ashok, may I introduce my nephew Gagan? He's staying with us for the weekend. See the way they are using the words and the conversation here. May I introduce my nephew to you, that is Gagan, staying with Mrs. Khanna for a weekend. Mr. Ashok, how are you, Gagan? So here, Mrs. Khanna has introduced Gagan and now Mr. Ashok is questioning Gagan, how are you? So Gagan, fine, thank you, Mr. Ashok. So always when it is in the formal language, the word or the sentence, how are you, will be followed by fine, thank you. Because of concern, he is asking you, how are you? So your reply or your response should be, I'm fine, thank you, followed by thank you. Mr. Ashok, I'm in a hurry, Mrs. Khanna. Let's meet later. Mrs. Khanna, yes, carry on, Mr. Ashok. Mr. Ashok, goodbye, Gagan. I'm glad to have met you. Gagan, I'm glad to have met you too. Mr. Ashok, goodbye. Mr. Ashok, goodbye then. Mrs. Khanna, please give my regards to Mr. Khanna. Mrs. Khanna, yes, I will. Goodbye. See, always, once you start with the conversation, the ending of the conversation is very important. So, once the introduction is done, he say it's pleasure meeting or it's very glad meeting you, sir. Even the response will be the same thing from Mr. Ashok also. Once everything is done, so now Mr. Ashok is in a hurry. He wants to go and reach someplace. So, before he goes, he says that, convey my regards to Mr. Khanna. And how does he end the conversation? He ends the conversation by saying goodbye. Goodbye, he means to say that he is leaving. It's a leave-taking thing is happening in this conversation. So always the conversation should be like this. So depends on the question. Most of the time you cannot expect the same kind of the conversation. Sometimes it might be with the blanks. One clue is given and the next you have to fill the 2 or the 3 blanks. And this question might be asked for 4 marks as well as for 5 marks. And here, most of the time, what happens in the sense, they might give the first sentence and in the bracket, they might give the word as introduction. Introduction. So, reading to the first line and the next answer or the next reply will be introduction. You have to introduce someone, or else seeking permission, or else complimenting someone. You cannot depend on the same question each and every time. You won't get the question asking for introduction. It might be different. As I told, there are 16 odd language functions. Among the 16, they might ask any of the language functions in that one paragraph. That is the dialogue writing. When you have a dialogue writing, all this language functions is very important. They might ask you for introduction or gratitude, expressing your sympathy, disagreeing statement, complimenting, requesting, anything it might be. Sometimes they will be given in a blanks, or else match the expression with your language functions. For example, you look pretty in this new clothes. This is the expression. What is the language function of that? You look pretty. That is complimenting. I'm complimenting. You're gorgeous. You look very beautiful. All these are complimenting. Can I take your pen? Or could I get a pen? It's a request. So like this, you might have the dialogue writing or else as the match the following. Dialogue writing will be asked for 4 marks and the expressions with their language functions for 5 marks. Moving forward. So here is a table, some common expression for introducing. So there are formal as well as informal way of introducing or greeting the people. May I introduce? May I introduce my friend to you? May I introduce my friend Rita? May I introduce my colleague? Anyone might be. It's my pleasure to introduce. It's my pleasure to introduce my mom, or my father, or my brother, sister, anyone it might be. It's my pleasure to introduce to the manager. It's my pleasure to introduce to my principal, because it's in the formal way. I feel honored to introduce. So here, I feel honored to introduce whom? Honored to introduce the chief guest. There'll be a function in your college, for example, and you're requested or you're asked to honor the chief guest. So when you talk about the other person, you say, I feel honored to introduce the chief guest so and so for the day. That is how you introduce the people in a formal way. And in the informal, meet my friend, meet my brother, meet my sister, anyone it might be. This is my friend Neha. This is my friend Shreya, like that. Ravi, please meet Shashi. Anu, this is Praveen. So these are the few formal and the informal way of introducing. How do you start the conversation? By these words or by these formal and the informal words, you can start the conversation for introducing part. Moving next, it is the formal and the informal way of greeting. As I told in the language function, which I've explained in my previous session, how to introduce or how do you get to know whether the person who is speaking to you is in the formal or the informal way. How are you going to greet them? So when I say good morning, how are you? In the formal, it should be followed by good morning itself. When I say good morning, you cannot say hello or hi, because when are you using this formal language function? When you're speaking to someone who is in the highest position, who is in the higher position. So you start your conversation with good morning. You cannot say hi and hello. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This will be the formal way. And in the informal, that when you're talking to your friends, your colleagues, your relatives, anyone it might be, you can use these languages. Hello, haven't seen you for a long time. Hi there, hi everybody, or hi. You begin your conversation with these words. So it is very important for you to know how to start or how to introduce, how to greet a person or how to begin the conversation when you're talking to the person who is in a higher authority and when you talk to your friends and relatives. So there are lots of difference when you speak to the higher position people as well as to your friends and the relatives. So the very first or the important thing is that you should be knowing the formal and the informal way of greeting or introducing the people. Only then your language function will be complete, or else it goes wrong. So this is the activity 1. So let's fill the blanks with the appropriate expression. Anup goes to play cricket. There he meets his friend Raju. Raju introduces his neighbor Manoj to Anup. So who is going to play cricket? Anup is going to play cricket. There Anup is meeting his friend Raju, and Raju introduces his neighbor Manoj to Anup. Who is introducing? His neighbor Manoj is introducing to Anup. Let's see the dialogue here. Anup, Raju. The next, Anup, neighbor Manoj. He is in the college cricket team. So it is, hello, Raju. Hi, Anup. Meet my neighbor Manoj. He is in the college cricket team. So there is a blank given. See the conversation how it starts. Because as I told, it is in the formal meeting or introducing a friend here or the neighbor. Here in this conversation, here it is introducing to a neighbor. Neighbor is getting introduced. So here Anup says hi Raju or hello Raju, and the reply from Raju will be hi Anup. Meet my neighbor Manoj. He is in the cricket team. After introducing, he says that he is into the cricket team also. Next, Anup. Hi Manoj. Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure meeting you, Raju. But we must go now. See you later. Anup, okay, bye, take care. So here he is in a hurry. He wants to go. So he says, I'm in a hurry. I'm going now. So before going, they need to end up the conversation. So he end up the conversation saying that, see you later. And Anup says, okay, bye, take care. Next, activity 2. Given below is a conversation in a jumble form under 3 columns. Rearrange the dialogues to make a meaningful conversation and rewrite it in the space provided below. So what happens here in the sense, there's a dialogue. The dialogue is given in 3 columns and you have to read the dialogues and you have to rewrite. Here, I'm not going to rewrite. I'm just going to number it. So this column or this conversation, you can find it in your textbook also, and there you have to rewrite, but here I'm not going to rewrite it. Lalita and her friend Leela come home. Lalita's father is about to leave for work. So who is coming home here? Lalita and Leela is coming home. Leela is coming to Lalita's home, and here Lalita's father is about to leave. So here Leela and Leela's father and Lalita. So let's see how the conversation begins. And now we have to go through with all the columns and we have to match with the dialogues. It is jumble. We have to rearrange it here. So as I've told, there are 3 columns, Lalita, father and Leela. Now let's see how Lalita is introducing her dad to Leela. Dad, meet my friend Leela. This is my father. This is conversation 1. So what will be the reply from Lalita's father? Hello Leela, how are you? So this is 1 here. So what will be the reply for Leela? I'm fine uncle, thank you, how are you? This is 1. So how are you? So Leela has questioned, how are you? So there should be a reply for this from Lalita's father. So he says, I'm fine Leela. Lalita often talks about you. I'm glad I could meet you. This will be the conversation 2. I'm glad to meet you. Now Lalita is asking, are you in a hurry, Dad? This is 2 conversation 2. So he says, I'm on my way to office. See you later. See you, Lalita. So he says he's on his way to office. He's in a hurry to go to office. So he says, see you, Lalita. So she says, see you, Dad. This is conversation 3. And next, Lalita says, see you, uncle. This is conversation 2. Why it is conversation 2 in the sense? Because there are only 2 dialogues. Here in these 2 columns, there are 3 conversations, but there it is only 2. This is how you have to match the conversation. And if you question me, ma'am, do we get the same kind of a question where we have to match the dialogue? No, you won't get any questions like this, but the clues will be given. Maybe the introduction or a sympathy or a complimenting or requesting something in the bracket. Based on the clues, based on the language functions, you need to write the dialogue or you need to create the dialogue. Always when you introduce a person or when you're introduced to somebody by your friend, your conversation begins with hi and hello. When you meet a stranger, it will be like excuse. When you talk about the person or when you're introduced to someone who is in the highest position or in a high authority, you start a conversation with good morning. This is very important from the examination point of view. All the 16 odd language functions are important. So that is all about today's session about introduction or introducing and greeting each other. In my next session, I'll be discussing about complimenting and congratulating. Until then, have a good day. Thank you.